So here we are. It's 2022, guys, and welcome to the Six Star Business Podcast. I am here with my co-host Steve Sandor tonight. Welcome, Steve.
How are you, Evelyn? Really excited to get this ball rolling.
Lovely. I'm excited too. And our guests tonight, we've got Tom Hitchcock and Kabel, and I don't want to say your surname because I don't want to muck it up.
That's why we left it off. Just call me Kabel.
Excellent. Kabel, so good to have you here.
Thank you. It's really good to be here.
Awesome. So we love to kick things off by asking you a few questions as for our listeners to get to know who you are. And, if you could let us know who you are, where you are in the world, who you serve, and something you might like to do when you're not working in your spare time, something that tickles your fancy, floats your boat, all the rest. Who'd like to kick us off?
I'll kick us off if you like, if you don't mind, Kabel.
Go for it, Tom.
Fantastic. So, so as you said, my name's Tom Hitchcock. I'm based in Sydney, obviously from the UK originally. I haven't shifted the accent, so it's a little bit confusing. I know when I speak to my family in the UK, they think I'm Australian, and everyone here thinks I'm British. I'm sort of stuck somewhere in the middle, a genuine vagabond. So my business is Purple Patch Consultings. The people we serve predominantly are business owners, the SMEs of the world and so forth, with their staff in talent and workplace performance. But we're also working a lot with upskilling individuals as well. So we work on the candidate side a lot as well. So we're kind of serving both sides of the fence. That's the spirit of the agency, I suppose. And I do lots of interesting things on the side. I just don't tell everybody about them. But I think I'll give you one of them. Boxing's probably my go-to outside of being a business owner, which consumes all your time anyway and all your mental faculties. So any spare time I get, boxing's my thing at the moment.
And do you have a boxing bag, the gloves and all of that set up there just outside the office door? Is that the setup?
It's all based on how well the staff are performing, to be honest with you, which boxing bag I use. But no, I've got a small boxing gym in the house. I've had a few bouts, so I like to sign up and train and do it. So I've probably I know I've got something booked up for this year, but I'll let that one out later.
Ooh, interesting.
I look forward to hearing about it.
It's a bit elusive, that one.
And what about yourself, Kabel?
Yeah, look, I'm an hour north of Sydney in Gosford. I serve, my life's work is to help others, and I have a social enterprise that is sort of merging in parts into various charities. Not merging, is creating charities this year, called Love is the Answer. And we've got 4 missions that we're trying to complete, but essentially we're just trying to help those that need help. We help charities with improving their businesses or their charities, make them more efficient, save money, make money and avoid risk. We are setting up a disaster relief fund because everything else that we've got at the moment is just so poor. The Black Summer fires, I think, highlighted that pretty clearly. So we're going to try and fix that, and then we're going to set up an animal and a people sanctuary. We've had somebody donate a farm about 40 k's west of Foster. So we've got 200 acres already sitting and waiting. Hopefully we can buy some more land around that as well. But that's a place where people and animals that have had a rough time can come and really sort of chill out and find themselves again. And then we've started a new thing that just came out of, through connections, but we're starting an events and projects mission as well. And through every project and event that we do, it's designed to benefit, for our first event, 25% of the revenue is going to fund the course for free for domestic violence survivors. So that's everything that we do in that events section. It will go to benefiting people that need some help for free. And what do I like to do? Anything with water, really. And I've managed to teach my youngest daughter to surf. So at the moment, anytime really. We were down there last night. She went for a first sunset surf, which was great. I'm usually out there in the water trying to, push her onto the waves because she's only 10. She hasn't got the arm strength yet to really go for it, although she tells me she's an expert and it's all good. But so that's what I'm doing. But yeah, anything with water. I'm into the ocean, pools, you name it.
That's brilliant.
I think what you're doing for the community and what have you completely trumps me. So I'm on the back.
We always learn from other people, don't we? Like in some small ways. It's
absolutely.
And I've just learned not to compare myself. There are times like Kabel, I look at what you're doing and I'm just like, wow, and yet I fully appreciate that's your journey. That this is your path, and we all have unique paths.
Exactly. Look, I came onto my path in a pretty tragic way. So, but I'm really glad that I found it, because it's just after spending 27 years working in the high-end corporate world, now to be doing my own thing and actually be following, what my life's purpose is. It feels great. It's bloody hard though. I've got to say, it's not, running a business isn't simple, and there's the learning curves so steep, which is, again, this year's going to be very, very steep, setting them up as charities and doing all of that stuff. But that's where, great advice and great mentors come into it. So, yeah, I'm lucky, I think. That's what I choose to look at it.
Yeah, well, you are. We're all lucky in our own way, aren't we?
Yeah.
If we choose to look at it that way.
Yeah, and I've been through the journey to get to that. So I've had mental health issues now for 14 years I've been diagnosed for 14 years, and I've had depression and anxiety for that time. And I found, I found my life's purpose through a tragic car accident where a young girl lost control of a car and hit my car head on. And unfortunately, she died that night. And as a father of two daughters, and somebody who comes from a big family we've lost family members in very, very similar ways before. So I know both from the children's perspective and also from the parents' perspective what they go through. And that just tore me apart. Absolutely tore me apart. I've picked up PTSD as a result of that. And through frustration, maybe 5 months after the accident, my body's not the same. I've lost all my strength in that time. I'm building it back now. But I take a lot of painkillers to do that. But I got pissed off one night in the backyard with this whole scenario of this beautiful girl dying. So I screamed at my guardian angels and just said I'm over it. Either tell me what my purpose is or, go somewhere else, very impolitely. And the next day I started finding out exactly what my purpose was. As soon as I woke up, it was within 30 minutes, they made it crystal clear. And Kismet started on a daily basis in an incredible way to put me on the path I'm on. So a bit weird. Definitely been weird to go through at times. Some of the Kismet stuff that happens, you just end up in shock. But it's I'm coming up this year on the second anniversary of the accident, and funnily enough, it actually happened on the third anniversary of my stroke. It happened on the same day. So I had a stroke 3 years before that, and then so on the 26th of March, I don't go out of the house. I don't touch anything that could possibly kill me or do anything. It's just, yeah.
Wow, okay. Well, that was amazing. Really, really, yeah, blew me away. Thank you for sharing.
I find that sort of thing fascinating.
That's okay. No, please.
So in what we do is we're always dealing with people's purpose. Okay, so for example, so we're dealing with people with their career, which fundamentally is their biggest investment of their life. Okay, and they treat it as such. So they keep their cards close to their chest. They don't tell you the full truth, the whole truth, and sometimes they don't really know what the full truth is themselves. Okay, so it's down to us as a good recruiter, for example, to peel that back a little bit and just get to, okay, so really, where do you want to be going? Exactly what your 5-year plan will be. What's going to get you excited in the morning on a bad day, and really align your purpose. So you're not just doing a job for job's sake. And when you really strip it back, we see a lot of people, they have a complete change of heart in their career and a redirection. And it's really important that people will establish what is important to them. Okay, so they're not doing the same year on repeat again and again and again and again. And yours is obviously through trauma. It's dramatic. It's significant. You've had your eureka moment, and it's given you, a hard stop and a hard start, if you like. But for many people, they need something external just to trigger that change, so that they know what they're doing is exactly what they're here to be doing.
Yeah, look, I'd probably still be on the same corporate wheel that I was on. I specialized in high-end business development, and that's what, I was really good at and doing and making great money, and everything was awesome. But if, I don't think I would have, funnily enough, actually, a couple of months ago, in just speaking to somebody, my answer, if I ever won lotto, what would you do? Has always been, I'd help charities and help people. And I've been saying that since I was 20. I'm 47, and I never connected the dot. Never. I'm like, could have saved myself a load of, but it all comes down to experience. I think now, like what you're saying, Tom, is trying to find your why with everything we've been through for the last 2 or 3 years, working from home, kids working, doing schoolwork or running around like chooks with their head cut off behind us. I think everybody's why has changed, or a lot of people, they have had that time and that space without management looking over their shoulder to think about, like, I actually don't like this. What are you seeing as far as people, doing 90-degree turns in their career path?
So I didn't catch that. I didn't catch the question. So what am I seeing in regards to people?
To people changing their career paths.
Okay, so what we're finding is that we've got the big resignations, what everyone's talking about. Okay, so people are doing a bit of a recalibration on evaluation. But this is a little bit more in the selfish sense, where people think, actually, now I want more flexi time. I want to work from home. There's a few I wants. Now, when you've got a candidate shortage, which we do have in Australia right now, probably like most of the world, because there's not much people movement, then they're going to get these things. Which is why you get the big resignation. But it's a pendulum. It will come back. Okay. So at the moment, those recalibrations are on wants only. Okay. Once that plateaus out, the recalibrations you're going to see are going to be around where people have been busy, being proactive, upskilling themselves. They might have done some micro credentials somewhere, learned how to do this, that, and the other. And then they just think, hold on a minute, I really enjoyed this little sort of hobby, or I'm now going to make a side hustle, or I'm going to, people are shifted in that sense. And they're making the most of a candidate short market to make that happen. That's for sure.
How are you finding employers
Employers
are
are very
taking it?
concerned about a few things. I feel for them because I am one myself. If you can't find your staff, it's a problem. If you're having to go to the market when the market's tough, you're paying a premium for not an ideal person. It's quite high risk. It's high liability. And at the end of the day, let's say half your workforce wants to work from home, which all sounds good, but if you're the person responsible for paying for them and all the liabilities, all the risks, everything else is quite a big commitment, then if you're in their shoes, you'd think, oh, mate, well, my preference is I'd like to have you in, where I can see you, because if you're paying it, if it's the employer's choice, that's how you want it to be. So there's going to be a bit of give and take going on for sure. But also, for for all the people who say they want to work at home and what have you, it's also been one of the first things that people have articulated that they're fed up with. Like you said, the last 2 years working at home, spending too much time with the dog or whatever. We want to get back into that sort of normality of what we were used to before as well. So it's a double-edged sword, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I find people that are just chomping at the bit to go back into the office. And then, like, I've worked from home professionally for 15 years now, so this is actually my norm. Going to the office is a shock, We went and caught up with one of my partners prior to Christmas, and it was weird driving down the freeway to Sydney. I was like, oh, no, I haven't done this for a while. Driving through the traffic, I'm like, this is a bit weird.
That's been one of the perks from COVID is the roads have been desolate. It's been fantastic. You need to go somewhere, it's brilliant. I was quite happy with working from home and everything else myself. I was enjoying myself, and as I said, my dog was very happy. He was getting walked more than ever.
Yeah, the separation anxiety from the animals is not good.
Yeah, true. So,
I'm going to ask a question here because it relates back to Kabel and his ability to just be vulnerable in that moment, and sort of linking it back to the experiences around the employer of choice, and to both of you, where do you, because this is the 6-Star Business podcast, right? So we're talking about how this relates to potentially how do you become a 6-star employer, or to create a 6-star experience for your customers. So really interesting, Kabel, you shared from the heart there. Where is that in an employer or a 6-star business? How do you see that fitting into that ecosystem? And then Tom, how do you see employees looking at their employers and whether they're choosing whether this is an employer of choice?
Yeah, it's funny. One of the very first things when I started the brain dumps for creating Love is the Answer was the employment ethos. It's all I can come up with to call it. I don't even know if I'm calling it the right thing, but or my charter or whatever it is. But I felt very strongly that I needed to create a place that not only I want to work at, because it's my business. I mean, why create something you're just like, oh, this sucks. But I wanted to be I literally wrote down a list of everything I hated about working for other people. I've worked for small, medium, large companies, every type of industry. It's been crazy. But so what I did was then reverse what I hated. So we're actually going to work a 4-day week maximum. So I'm hoping I can get everyone to convince to take Monday off. Or if not, then we just do it flexi and you take Monday, I take Friday, whatever. A maximum 8-hour day. And you'll be paid higher than the award or higher than, saying what you're worth is not the right thing, but the going market rate is everyone gets 6 weeks holiday a year. You can buy extra holidays if you want. There is no, it's going to cost more, but I want to create a place where when people, because and I'm hoping this just isn't me, actually, it just occurred to me, but I'm hyperactive. So when I work flat out, and I get a lot done. I know that if you're working for an employer that you don't like and they're treating you poorly, 40 to 50% of your brain capacity is occupied by, I hate this place, I hate him, I hate her, I hate what's going on. And that train's just going round and round and round. But if you remove all of that from somebody's brain space, then you've actually got their full potential out in the open. And if people are happy and they're satisfied and they're well looked after, and in some cases they know that they're loved, then, because I want a very diverse workforce as well, then I think the revenue is really going to flow from that, and the workload as well, because I'm never going to put you in harm's way. I'll make sure that you're always looked after, and hopefully as a return, I get great employees from that as well. But as a lot of employers have pointed out, positively and not positively, I might be dreaming a bit too high. But I'm like, why not give it a shot? You know, why not try to create a great workplace? Why not try to create, you know, it doesn't always have to cost a fortune. Yeah, it'll cost a bit more. But what if the returns on it are higher than expected? That's my solution.
If it's okay, I wouldn't mind adding to that, actually, because we do quite a bit of work in this space where we're working with clients, EVPs, and traditionally, so the employee value proposition, for those that didn't know that one, just in case. But traditionally, HR teams specifically like these for the sake of retaining staff. This is what they want, but fundamentally, its primary purpose is to attract talent. So if a good member, a good individual for the organisation is considering you as well as some others, but you're all pretty similar, this is the point of difference that makes them come to you. Okay, but there's a lot of studies around this says that you have to be a little bit careful, because you can throw a lot of time and effort at giving people what you think they want, and it still doesn't achieve too much. Okay, the work I've done with the business coaching side of things is we look a lot at what a business's core values are. Okay, and I'm not just talking about, okay, let's just put the things up for the bit of fluff, so it's said, it's done. I'm queen just talking and moaning about the integrity kitchen. Okay, so one of our core values is integrity, and we're going to put it on the kitchen so everyone sees it, but everyone then forgets about it. Okay, when we're talking about core values, which are everywhere to be seen, but in every step of the process with your business. So you're actually living and breathing and doing those. Now, if you hire on the basis of those core values and they align, then the EVP becomes irrelevant, because if your beliefs and values align with the company, then you're working with true autonomy. True autonomy. Okay, autonomy isn't about not being micromanaged, what have you. It's about doing what really is intrinsically aligned with you and your core beliefs. Okay, and if you're generally doing that as a company and you hire on that basis, then people just love what they do. It's not about their skill gaps and so forth. They're doing what they love, you know, and that's really, and that costs nothing. That costs nothing to do, you know. That's my experience of it. In that field anyway.
Oh, yeah, look, I absolutely think in my first sales management role, me and the boss were trying to figure out some way. We were smashing targets, and I was like, we were just a great little company in 20 odd years ago. We had a really good product and it was great. And we were offering probably, $1,500 worth of extra bonuses a month to get the sales guys to try and shift and see if there was an extra gear. And it wasn't working at all. What ended up working was the person with the highest sales at the end of each day got $5. At the end of the week, the person with the highest sales at the end of the week got $10. And what that meant for them was they could just go to the chip shop next door and have a cheeky lunch. They're giving up that. I was sitting there going, you do realise you can walk home with $1,500. Yeah, no, it's all good. we want to race to see who can get the $10 at the end, cash at the end of the day. End of Friday, I was like, this is nuts. Whereas me personally, I'm going for the $1,500. Being the competitive salesman, But I also agree with in recruiting people. Tough gig, man. Running a high-end BD team and recruiting for that people in that role. Wow. And for a company that it did not match its values, it didn't. So the values are up here from the marketing team, and nowhere in the business would you see anything that matched that.
Exactly. That disconnect
So,
which really
difficult.
cost businesses. Whether involving staff sort of come in, or actually I thought it was going to be this, but it ended up being that, and you see all these comments on Glassdoor, which are very, very painful to the business. The cost of a bad hire is massive. So if you get the core of the business right, you get the why right, and it's articulated correctly at every stage, every touch point with the business, then your business is going to be harmonious, as harmonious as it can be, and then you could toy around with things, your bonuses and whatever. I remember I had someone I was doing some coaching with recently who was trying to incentivize his team. He's got a construction company with some bonuses and significant size bonuses, and they weren't working. But then I got him to speak with each of his staff individually. He's got about 10 staff or something, just to see what was making them tick. And one of them, straight away, he worked it out. All he wanted was a new surfboard. So instead of having this X amount of caving, he worked twice as hard to knock off at 4 o'clock to catch the surf and have this specific surfboard. So as soon as he visualized what was important for him, then that was it. So he effectively hit all his KPIs and beyond, as opposed to something which would have cost maybe 5 times more, like the bonus that wasn't working. So get to know your team. Guess what motivates them as an individual as well. Acknowledge that. And then what you're doing is you're making sure that you're investing your time into your team to be their best version of themselves. So they feel good when they go home and they pour a glass of wine or whatever. Yeah, that was a good day. And if you're the facilitator of that, you're empowering them.
That's
awesome.
Isn't it? It's and maybe you've already answered the question, but given that we're in this state of the Great Resignation and we've been through a couple of years that we, haven't sort of experienced before, what do you guys think a business needs to do to be 6-star moving into the next year? Let's just go the next year ahead.
For me, if to be 6-star, if you're talking about personnel, talent, what have you, which seems to be the focal point here on the big resignation, is to actually genuinely learn from the previous 2 years. So I remember the first batch of COVID, everyone was like the pivot, the big pivot. Everyone went online, or they did this, they did that. Okay, so that was all well and good. Then we seemed to come out of it. Okay, and then we went back into it again, but we hadn't learned. So many people are we didn't think it would happen twice. It's like, well, if you're going to learn something from the first hit of COVID, is to expect the unexpected. So what you do is the second time around, third time around, it's going to happen again. Make sure your business is bulletproof, okay, for all the uncertainties. Play out all the potential things that could go wrong and have cadences in place. So if that happens, then we're going to do this. Okay, then it doesn't matter what comes. We can be invaded by aliens next. We're all right.
Don't put that out on the table, yeah? Look, for me, I think that's Tom made it happen. I think the biggest thing for me is you're going to see, look, and maybe I've been really unfortunate, but I've worked for a lot of poor employers. I've worked for Fortune 100 companies, everything, every size in between. I've worked for a few really great companies, but I think it's going to force the companies that haven't treated their staff well, have not, where, I used to work on a place where the sales floor was on the same floor as the C-suite. And the only thing that separated those two sides was an elevator shaft in the middle of the building. We never, ever saw any of those C-suite on the sales side of the building. In fact, the chief sales officer pointed it out after she'd been there 3 months, and the first time we saw her, she's like, "Oh, does anyone ever go in with that?" No, you know, yeah, your vision and culture is, So for me, I think it's going to be where leaders are really going to step up and start providing a real connection with their employees, providing real purpose for their employees. No more. I think micromanagement's dead. I think if you're one of those managers, you want to be looking for a career change, because, yeah, I don't think people would tolerate that kind of crap these days. I think to be a 6-star business is really lifting the game around mental health, around, psychological safety, and making sure that you're not harming your staff. The amount of people that I've counseled at workplaces who had really poor mental health because of the workplace is ridiculous. I'm one of those people myself. I have a shocking inner voice that I'm trying to learn self-compassion to change that inner voice in me. And that comes mostly from my workplaces and the manipulation and stuff that goes on at that high end. But it also happens at the low end. I remember back when I was training to be a chef in my 20s, and I'm 6'7", so you got to be pretty good if you want to have a go at me. But I'm a peace-loving hippie, so I'm not really a violent person. But to see, and this was when chefs were out the back, there was no glass walls or open kitchens. You couldn't see what was going on in the back. And they're mad as cut snakes, most of the people I work with. And the things that I heard said and done to people were just appalling, absolutely appalling. Like, you pull people, you pull up the head of a restaurant for the things that he'd say to the people. Just get like, seriously, that's wrong. I had an employer once say to a young lady, "Oh, I know, she was adopted apparently. Oh, now I know why your real parents gave you up."
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like right next to her, just going, "What the fuck did you just say?" And yeah, I think I was just shocked, and just like, that didn't just happen. But that stuff happens all the time. So I think the 6-star business places are ones that are going to protect their staff and make that a priority, because everyone's coming out of COVID with a little bit different.
I think there's a common theme throughout all of the conversations that have been had on this particular podcast, and it comes back to that core. Business is about people. It's not about money. It's not about product. It's all about the relationships that you create internally and externally, because we're human, right? So it's that. So Tom, you're dealing with employers on a regular basis. Do you see a shift in how people are being treated? Because really what Kabel's talking about is, caring for your staff, or caring for your people. I'm using the word love. You love your people, because it's not used enough in the business environment, right? So the boardroom, you can't say love because you'll get arrested, right? Well, I think we can. I think we can say that we love what we do, and we love the people who work with us. We respect them. They don't always behave well. So do you see a shift or have you seen a shift in the way that the 80s behavior, greed is good, and, rip everybody, talk disrespectfully to people, as to, 40 years down the track, where are we?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you sort of like jumped to my answer, actually, because the best way to look at that is to look back at the day of the Filofax and the yuppies, if you like, to see just how business has changed from then to now. So it's fair to say, yes, there's been a shift, and there's going to continue to be a shift. Has COVID and all the uncertainty around that been a catalyst for change? Absolutely. What the full aftermath of that to be will be, I don't know, because we're in a bit of a false economy where things are catching up, and when the borders reopen, then that staff shortage won't be what it really is. It's the same people are still about. It's just a matter of them being able to move about. So, but there is definitely two different types of employers out there. There's those that believe they are forward thinking, and there's a lot invested in front facing. This is who we are. But in when it comes to realization, and you plug yourself into a specific team, ultimately this is completely different. Okay, but it's just the way we've always done it, and it's working, so we'll keep doing it. But then there are those more agile, which are genuine about what they're doing. I think they're probably the future of work, in all fairness. But we also need to be careful not to give too much power to the candidate. Okay, something was said earlier that obviously we think micromanagement is dead. Okay, and that's easy to agree to, because none of us like being micromanaged, and also being a leader, we don't like to micromanage because it's exhausting. I'd rather I want automation. That's the opposite, you know. But it's quite interesting. Every now and again, it pops up that is the best way for someone to perform. That is what needs to happen for that person, and they're actually happy when they're performing. So it actually is a necessary evil, if you like. Okay, so we can't always just have what we want, and we end up being the best version of ourselves. Sometimes that little the introduction of what I call healthy stress, okay, in the right environment, the right place, gets the best out of us. Okay, but and it's essential that employer keeps their role in society, if you like, to get that from us. You know, shit, I'm late. I need to go. We need a bit of that. It's just like, oh, well, it's all right. I'll be replaceable. I'll turn up when I want. You know, that's not going to get the best out of anybody. You know.
Yeah, I call that you need to be in control. So letting go of control is not the right thing. As a leader, you need to be in control, but you need to be less controlling.
Exactly.
So if you're hiring people to do a job, let them do it.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree with that more. And obviously, there's candidates in place that if something isn't being performed, you can step in and do what you need to do. But I think I'm a firm believer, and this is what I do in my business, is everything's bespoke. So yes, we've got systems, framework, process, all these lovely things. But if I treat every single individual exactly the same, I'm an idiot, because they're all completely independent. We've all got our own genuine USP, our own unique strengths, which is unique, and weaknesses, which are unique to us, you know, and we want to celebrate that. We want to maximise that. So I want to enhance the individual, which means that there's completely different managerial leadership types for each individual within the team. You know, that's how I think things are going. And I think I think it's nice to be recognised for exactly who we are. It's like, Tom, you're terrible at this. We're going to take it off you. Brilliant, that's fine. And let's go and do what you're good at. Go and speak to these people. Blah 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 blah. You know, that's empowering.
Yeah, yeah. And what I'm hearing from both you, from everyone, is part of this shift is about us, inclusive management, executive level, business owners, actually looking more at people, caring more, and honouring who the person is more. Would you say that's about right?
Yeah, I would think that's a very good summary. Yeah, you actually, excuse the coarse words, but actually give a shit. Okay.
Yeah.
If you give a shit about your customers, you give a shit about your business, you give a shit about your people, you give a shit about your stakeholders, and so on.
Yeah.
Then it's going to count for something.
Yeah, I love that. What do you see as being
I think
potential block for a business in the next year to achieve that? You know, what's going to stop someone from being 6-star and from being able to give a shit across the board?
I think revenue's a killer at the moment. If you haven't got stock, or if you work in one of those kind of businesses that, you know, needs to buy and sell something, then, you know, what a roller coaster ride. If you're in a restaurant, tourism, like, what a roller coaster that is. Look, I generally think a lot of companies are going to have trouble with, I don't know, I've just got this gut feel that a lot of people are just going to pull out of the workforce. You know, this has been going 2-3 years now. People have figured out side hustles. They've figured out, you know, as Tom was saying, they've done extra training here and there. They've done a course here and there. If you're not helping me get my why, which Tom mentioned at the very beginning, staff is going to kill you. Staff shortages is, if you haven't got people to do the job, you haven't got a business. And this is where I think a lot of business people are getting a really rude shock and going, oh, they're not just a number. I've got to have these people here. There's got to be somebody to serve my customers. And all of a sudden, we've got 50% of our workforce crap. And then COVID's coming in and kicking another 20% out, because now we've got these weird, wonderful, you know, bring your COVID to work days. Yeah, I don't think if you've got, I think there's just going to be this really big shift. And I don't think I don't think the battle is any longer going to be employee and employer. I don't, because there's always, you know, when you get into management in a business, then all of a sudden there's a lot of perspectives change. It's a them and us mentality, you know, the employees and the management teams. The good places you work where they have some servant leaders but yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of the differences between the people that come out of this are going to be people that understand that, you know what, actually he's the same age, he's a person, he's not just a number. And if I treat him with a bit of respect, trust him to do his job, because that's actually what I hired him to do. I'm the monkey that hired him. So if he's not performing, then what have I done wrong? But yeah, I think people's going to cause a real issue. You'll see it this year. You're already seeing it. Like they're sending people back to work with COVID now because there's nobody to do the job. Like that's the kind of situation they've got to. And you just, before we started this, as I walked through the lounge room, there's like 20 unions in boxes on a Zoom call about to kick off about massive strikes because of the risk that employers want to put on their employees. It's going to come to the point where the employers are going to be dragged to it, I think, in a lot of cases. And it might be just those age-old business industries that are just old school, but I don't know.
I think you obviously originally went in on the question of what the potential roadblocks will be to stop businesses evolve in the way they want to accommodate what they foresee the future of the workplace. For me, I think what you started on, Kabel, for me was absolutely bang on. It all comes down to dollar and cents. Okay, for all the best ideas you present to the board, you need a business case. If it doesn't stack up, it's not happening. It's a brilliant idea, but it's not happening. You know, and I've seen lots of companies that have really invested heavily in their staff and given these wonderful things, but they've gone down the pan as well. You know, because it didn't stack up. The pockets weren't as deep as they thought it was. Their projections, forecasts didn't materialise as they predicted. You know, so I speak of a lot of consultants in the innovation space. Okay, and when we say innovation, I really mean frontline innovation, the absolute wacky, crazy stuff.
Exciting stuff.
And they speak with the enterprise level blue chip clients, and they talk to the board about innovation. Okay, and they have to give the board a drilling down, saying, "Listen, if you want us to do this, it's all well and good, but we need to action it, and it's going to cost. It's going to be unknown, so we can't put business cases forward for this stuff." And 9 out of 10, these things never happen. So it's just this whole department of white noise and expensive white noise, you know. So they've got all these lovely innovation projects, but very rarely any of it comes into the light of day because of the dollars and cents, you know. And in all honesty, the reason why we've got this sort of booms at the moment. It's because everyone's back onto customer acquisition. Let's bring some people back. Budgets are hurting, okay, because they're behaving off the back of dollars and cents again. Without that, the company isn't there. No one's got the job. If people haven't got their jobs, then they're going to go back to their employers and actually suck it up and go with it. We've all got to keep a roof over our heads and our bellies full. So yeah, that's where the buck stops for me, and if that's where the main roadblocks are, and countries are in debt off the back of the last 2 years. Companies are in debt. People are in debt. This needs to be recouped somehow.
Yeah, it's tricky. I'm conscious of the time, and I'm wondering if I could ask you a final question. I have absolutely loved this conversation. So thank you both. Thank you all for where this has been and gone. Could you leave our listeners with like a golden nugget, like just that nugget of advice? What's that one thing that you'd like to leave them with?
My one's always the same for this, because it's how I believe business should be: is don't compete in a crowded space.
Because otherwise, in which case you'd be like banging your head against a wall for no reason, right?
Absolutely, that's it. I've got a recruitment company. There's thousands of them. I'm making sure that I've got my USPs and I'm going to maintain them. And if someone else copies them, then I'll come up with some new ones. That's just my own race.
Great advice. Thank you. What about yourself, Kabel?
Yeah. I'll back up Tom to start on that. I spent most of my career trying to be in the top 5% of what people were doing for that very reason. Don't do what the guy next to you is doing. Like, why? I think my best bit of nugget is going to be, I learned a lot. It's been at this time last year, I was still in a mental health clinic after having a massive PTSD meltdown prior to Christmas about the girl that died. So it wasn't my first visit to a mental health clinic. I think it was about my third. But in that time, I sat down with a psychologist and she made everything in my brain shuffle and drop in the right place. And I now am as strong as I am now because of that. What I've learned, I think, and this is a saying I actually have on one of my monitors. I've got 3 monitors here, and it's life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Like, my life's just been up and down and rocky, and you can either get stuck in that and just go, it's all shit, it's all never going to get any better, or you just go, you know what, I'm going for a ride anyway. Have fun. Geez, today was shit. Thank God I get another go tomorrow. So that's it. Learn to dance in the rain.
Yeah, love it. Well, thank you, Kabel. That's gold. Tom, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure having you both on the podcast. Thank you, Steve, being my sidekick today. It's been wonderful. I really appreciate your insights, your wisdom, your experience and knowledge. And thank you for being a part of the 6-Star Business Podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks. Great to meet you, Tom.